The setup is perfect. You've been watching this level for 2 days. You marked it last night. You told yourself, if price gets there, I'm in. No hesitation. And then price gets there and you watch it. You don't move. You don't click. You just watch. Something in you says, not yet, wait, make sure. So you wait. And while you're waiting, the trade sets up perfectly, exactly like what your analysis said it would. Textbook entry, clean signal, everything aligned. And you still don't move. Because what if you're wrong? What if the moment you get in, it reverses? What if this is the one time the setup fails? What if you miss something? And then, while you're still asking those questions, the trade takes off without you. 40 ticks, 50 ticks, 10 points, 20 points gone. In the direction you said it would go. And you sit there, watching the candles move, feeling something that isn't quite anger and isn't quite sadness. It's something quieter than both of those. It's the loneliness of knowing exactly what to do and being completely unable to do it. And the worst part, this isn't the first time. This is every time. If you can identify with this, I want you to stay with me today. Because what's happening in that moment has nothing to do with your analysis, nothing to do with your strategy, and everything to do with something that was decided for you long before you ever sat down in front of a trading screen. Welcome back to the Healing Trade. I'm Devin. I'm a certified life coach specializing in childhood trauma, a Reiki master, and I've been actively trading for 13 years, stocks, options, and for the last 2 years, futures. I'm not observing any of this from the outside. I lived every single one of these archetypes myself. And I built this channel because I couldn't find anyone else sitting in the exact intersection, healing work and trading experience. So I decided to be that person. We're continuing our 5-part archetype series, where we go deep into the 5 trauma responses that show up most in traders. We've talked about the panic seller, the one who exits too early. We've talked about the revenge trader, the one who can't stop going back in. And today we're talking about the one that nobody sees, the freezer, the trader who does everything right, the analysis, the preparation, the planning, and then sits in silence while the trade moves without them. This one is quiet. This one is lonely. And this one is deeply misunderstood. Let's get into it. Here's what makes the freezer so painful and so invisible. From the outside, they look uncommitted, passive, like they don't really want it. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The freezer is often the most prepared trader in the room. They've done the analysis, they've backtested the strategy, they've journaled, they've planned, they've marked every level. They want to trade more than almost anyone. But wanting and doing are two completely different things when your nervous system has decided that acting is dangerous. So they develop this exhausting, heartbreaking pattern. Perfect preparation, perfect analysis, setup prints exactly as planned, complete paralysis. Watch it work without them, shame, more preparation, repeat. They think the solution is confidence, more conviction, maybe a different strategy. Maybe if the signal was a little more cleaner, just a little more certain. But the signal is never certain enough, because certainty isn't actually what they're looking for. What they're looking for is safety. And they never felt safe enough to be wrong. The freezer grew up in an environment where being wrong was dangerous, not just uncomfortable, not just disappointing, dangerous. Maybe mistakes were met with punishment that felt outsized and unpredictable. Maybe nothing was ever quite good enough. You get close, almost there, nearly perfect. And that almost was somehow worse than failing outright. Because at least with failure, you knew where you stood. Maybe love and approval were conditional, tied to performance, tied to getting it right. And when you did get it right, when you worked hard and succeeded, it still wasn't fully safe. Because success brought its own complications, its own consequences. So the nervous system made a decision that made complete sense at the time. If I don't act, I can't be wrong. If I don't try, I can't fail. If I don't move, nothing bad will happen. Freezing wasn't weakness. It was wisdom for a child navigating an impossible environment. The problem is, that child grew up, but the nervous system kept the rule. And now you're an adult trader sitting in front of a screen where the cost of inaction is just as real as the cost of action, but your body doesn't know it yet. Your body is still back there, in that house, waiting to see if it's safe to move. I know this because I felt it too. Not in every trade, but in enough of them to understand what lives underneath it. I grew up in a home where the bar was always moving. My mother was a perfectionist, and perfection it wasn't just expected, it was demanded. You could work hard, do well, get close, and instead of being celebrated, she'd find the one thing that wasn't quite right, the one thing that fell short. And if you did succeed, really succeed, that had its own dangers too, because success could bring jealousy, resentment, a kind of punishment for shining too bright. So I learned something that took me decades to unlearn. Being good at things isn't always safe. And combine that with a home where financial chaos was always one bad decision away, where my father's gambling meant that stability could disappear overnight, and you have the perfect recipe for a freezer. Because in that environment, the only truly safe position was stillness. Don't act. Don't succeed too loudly. Don't fail visibly. Just wait. And I carried that into the trading screen. Not always, but in the moments that mattered most, the big setups, the high conviction trades, sometimes something would just shut me down. And I'd watch, and I'd miss it. And I'd tell myself it was because the signal wasn't clean enough. But that wasn't it. It was because some part of me still believed that being right, really, visibly, undeniably right, wasn't safe. That part was wrong. But she was doing her best. And she needed reparenting, not criticism, not more discipline, reparenting. And I have a whole YouTube channel concentrating on that. If you want to know more, I'll link it in the channel description here. So, what does healing look like for the freezer? Well, it starts with what I call the permission slip. Here's how it works. Before your trading session, not during, before, I want you to take out your journal and write yourself a permission slip, literally. Like you're writing it to that younger version of yourself who never got permission to be wrong. it might look something like this. Today I give myself permission to be wrong. I give myself permission to act on my analysis even without certainty. I give myself permission to be seen trying. My worth is not determined by whether this trade wins or loses. I am safe to act. Write it in your own words. Make it yours, but write it every single session. Because what you're doing is giving your nervous system a new message to replace the old one. You're telling the child who learned to freeze, it's safe now. You can move. I've got you. That's reparenting. And the second piece, and this one is important, when you miss a trade because you froze, I want you to resist the urge to shame yourself. That shame is the wound talking. It's the voice of the perfectionist who was never satisfied. Instead, write down what you saw, what you planned, what stopped you, with curiosity, not judgment. You are not broken. You're not weak. You are not undisciplined. You are someone that learned that stillness was survival. And now you're learning that it's safe to move. If today resonated, if you recognize that paralysis, that desperate need for certainty before you can act, I want to point you to something specific in the course. Week 4 of the healing trade is called Letting Go of Control. And for the freezer, that title alone might make something in you exhale. Because what you've been gripping so tightly, waiting for the perfect signal, the perfect certainty, the perfect moment, is control. The illusion that if you just wait long enough, being wrong becomes impossible. Week 4 is where we gently, carefully begin to release that grip. The full journey is 9 weeks, from naming the wound in week 1 through rebuilding self-trust, emotional alignment, redefining success, all the way to 3 bonus weeks, including surrender, rebirth, and quantum healing. The course is self-directed. You move at your own pace, in your own time, in your own safe space. The companion workbook is available separately if you want to begin there. One-on-one coaching sessions with me are also available if you want personal support on this journey. But if you're not ready for any of that yet, that's okay too. Stay with the permission slip. Start there. Also, if you're ready for community, people who understand exactly what you're going through, Overtraders Anonymous meets twice a week online. It's free. The link is in the description. You don't have to do this alone. You've been frozen long enough. It's safe to move now. Next week, we're talking about the 4th archetype, and this one is fascinating because on the surface, they look like the opposite of the freezer, the overrider, the trader who can't follow rules, who overrides their system, their stops, their plan, compulsivity repeatedly, even when they know better. But here's what's interesting. The overrider and the freezer actually share the same root wound, just expressed in completely opposite directions. If that sounds like you or someone you know, you won't want to miss it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Drop a comment below. Tell me if you recognize yourself in the freezer today. And remember, the most important trade you'll ever make is the one you make with yourself. I'll see you next week.